Hello and welcome to Associated University, a group that is designed to provide supply chain management professionals with access to information on practical solutions concerning the industry's current hot topics. Today we will be discussing how to identify opportunities that will improve safety while creating a more productive work environment. Your presenter today is Nathan Augst. Nathan is a solutions engineer at Associated, overseeing their consulting and systems integration department for their Northwest Territory. Nathan comes to us with 6 years of experience within the supply chain industry and a background in engineering, construction, and real estate. We have scheduled 15 minutes at the end of this presentation to answer any questions you may have. You may send your questions at any time during the presentation or at the end by simply typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. Following this webinar, we will also be providing all attendees with a copy of this presentation. And now I will pass it over to Nathan to get us started.
Hello and welcome. Today we'll start off by talking about the top 3 warehouse injuries that occur. The first one, slips and falls, ergonomic injuries, number 2, and the third one, injuries from material handling equipment. So the 5 top areas where these accidents can happen are within the storage system in a facility, so that's like the racking, the shelving, areas where there's manual material handling, dock areas. Dock areas are also very dangerous. Areas that have conveyors, and areas that have a lot of lift truck activity. So here's a poll question. What do you believe the average direct cost due to an injury is? All right, so let's see here. 3% thought 18,000, 22% thought 28,000, 41% of people thought 38,000, and 34% thought 48,000. So as many as 20,000 workers are injured by forklifts a year, and out of that, 100 are killed each year. Slip and fall accidents make up 15% of all accidental deaths and 25% of all injury claims, and they add up to over 95 million lost days of work each year. This statistic, 100 workers, for every 100 workers, there's 5.2 recordable accidents. This statistic comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, pretty stunning. So according to the National Safety Council, the average direct cost to a company is $38,000, and it also has $150,000 in indirect costs. So the answer was $38,000. On this table, you see the recordable events that were recorded to OSHA in 2013. If you look at the event description, you can see employee is struck by a dock plate, fractures leg, so that's the dock area, thrown from a forklift, struck by a trailer. So it falls right in line with what we had learned. You know, employee fractures arm, well, caught by conveyor, crushed by forklift. So you can really see that these areas and these type of injuries are quite common. So our goal today is to identify opportunities to improve safety within your facility. You know, identify the areas where accidents are more likely to occur. At the same time, have a better understanding of the type of equipment that's out there that can help prevent these injuries, as well as a knowledge of the services that are available to help you keep your facility safe. While we're doing that, we'll touch on a little bit of requirements and some of the things that OSHA looks for. So when we talk about the loading dock, some of the major causes of accidents and injuries are drive-away, vehicle creep, load roll-away, trailer tip, and water ingress. So for drive-away prevention, drive-away is when the driver pulls a semi away from the building while it's still being unloaded. Some of the accidents or injuries that can occur because the forklift falls off the dock or gets pinned between the trailer and the building. So some of the things that are out there, signals, signs, and barriers. You know, simple signals or signs like a red light, green light to let the driver know when it's safe to pull away from the dock. Key control. Key control is kind of a process. The driver turns in his keys. He does not get his keys back until the truck is unloaded and safe for him to pull away. Loading bay door locking system. This is where the dock locks onto the trailer and will not release it until after the truck is unloaded and the dock door is closed and locked. Trailer airline locking system. This is another mechanism that locks out the actual airlines for the brakes on the trailer system and makes it so the trailer is unable to pull away. Wheel chocks and restraints, these are very common. A lot of people use these. They go behind the tire, prevents the truck from pulling away. Vehicle creep. Vehicle creep is where the braking system on the truck may fail and it starts to creep away from the building while it's being loaded. Some of the things you can do, dock plate markings. It'll give a visual cue to the person unloading the truck to let them know that the dock plate is, adequately inside the trailer for unloading. At the same time, it'll let them know if the trailer is backed up straight to the dock. Wheel chocks and restraints, again, very common. Buffer specifications. So when we look at buffer specifications, I think of, the dock bumpers that are out there. There's all different specifications that are available depending on the type of truck that you have, in your dock. They also have automatic ones that'll adjust accordingly. The reason this is important is because when a truck pulls up to a dock, they want to be pushed up tight against those dock bumpers to ensure that either the dock board or the leveler is, in the trailer of the truck as far as it's supposed to be. Dock approach guides. These make sure that the trailer is backed up straight up to the dock, and at the same time it can lock the wheels in place, assuring that the truck will not pull away until it's unloaded. So vehicle creep and load rollaway prevention. Again, the dock and trailer specifications. Make sure that your dock is adequate for the type of trailer you're trying to unload. At the same time, you look at the levelers, make sure that they are spec'd out properly based on the type of trailer that you're loading and unloading, as well as it's important to look at the grade of your dock area as far as the driveway is concerned. So trailer tip prevention. This is when you're loading an empty trailer that is not connected to the tractor to the tractor. So it's an empty trailer that's sitting there. What happens is the material handling equipment pulls on to load an empty trailer, and the pallets may be too heavy or the equipment's too heavy, and it causes the trailer either to tip backwards or it can tip forwards. Some of the things to help prevent this are jack stands can be used, and they prevent the trailer from tipping forward. Other things that are available is using lighter material handling equipment. Walkie pallet jacks, manual pallet jacks are able to unload the trucks without having that added weight. So water ingress prevention. Water ingress is, when you get water within your dock. We talked about the dock area being one of the most dangerous areas in a facility. There's a lot of traffic in there, people coming in and out of trucks. And then you add water to the floor, getting liquid on the floor, it can become quite a slip hazard, very, very dangerous. Some of the things to look at are canopies, shelters, and seals. Each one is designed differently based on the type of trucks that you have coming to your facility. A canopy goes over the top. It's probably the most flexible, but it probably has the least benefit compared to the other two. A shelter allows your truck to pull in there. It protects a little more from the sides, but it does allow for a little flexibility in this type of trailer that you're looking at. The seals are designed for a certain size trailer that pulls up to your dock. It seals it off so that way you don't have the water blowing in if there's a rainstorm or snow. So definitely look at the type of trailer that you'll have at your facility when you're deciding what type of dock seal, shelter, or canopy you would use. So with all of these solutions, there's always possible issues that can happen. You look at human error or mechanical error. So when you're looking at implementing one of these solutions, I always recommend that you implement at least 2 or more. It's always better than having one. Just in case one fails, you may have another one that'll be there for you. So we move on to storage systems. Storage systems, your racking, your shelving. The types of damage that occur to those systems caused by forklifts, overloading the racking system, changing how the design is, and purchasing under capacity systems because they're less money. When we talk about forklift damage, a lot of damage occurs to the uprights because of the outriggers on like a reach truck. Another issue that can happen is when the drivers pull out of the bay and they cut the corner a little too sharp and they clip it upright with the pallet or the load. As well as backing up too far, hitting a row of racking behind them, or lifting a pallet up and hitting the beam from below can cause damage. So for prevention, we have aisle guards. They help protect the end of aisle for when the forklift is coming in and out so it doesn't hit the uprights. There's also column guards, simple ones that protect against outriggers. They mount right to the floor. They have ones that attach to the uprights, kind of a high-density plastic or rubber. Another good one that's really cost-effective if you're able to do it while you're designing your system is to have the guards actually built right into the uprights. You can have welded deflectors. You can do things like have cantilevered uprights which set the front column back and protect it from the outrigger on the forklift. Other products that are available out there are, the telemetrics that you have on trucks nowadays. You can have impact monitoring put on those as well. So that way you can identify the operators that need to be retrained or talked to about impacting the forklift into the systems. Other products you can look at are, lasers or cameras on your forks to be able to see how high your load is up there to make sure that, when you're putting it away, you've cleared the beam so you're not running the load into the beam. So another thing that we can look at are the aisle width. Everybody wants to compact the aisles down, get more product in your facility. One thing to do when you're doing that or consider is how the forklift will interact with the racking system. Now, one thing you can do is adjust the bay width. So, if you use a standard 8-foot beam, maybe you go with a 9-foot beam. It gives a little extra room for the outriggers so they can fit in there and they're not going to hit the upright. Another thing you can do is use a bottom beam. You put a bottom beam in there and the outriggers can fit underneath it so you don't have to worry about them running in the column. This is also good for housekeeping. It can help keep your floors clean as well. So all things to consider if you're doing a new layout or design. So overloading the rack. This is quite common. I get calls all the time from customers who say they notice their beams are starting to deflect a little bit. A little bit of deflection is okay. Kind of the industry standard or what we look at is, say on a 10-foot beam, you should never have more than a 1/2 inch deflection. The way to measure this is from the edge of the beam to the floor as well as from the middle of the beam to the floor to kind of measure how much deflection you have. When I design systems, we look at evenly distributed loads, making sure that the load is evenly distributed across all the beams. When you point load the beams, it can cause quite a bit of deflection. It can actually be dangerous. And it's the same thing for wire decking as well, to make sure that your wire decking is rated for what you want it to do, as well as having an evenly distributed load. One thing that OSHA will look at when they're in facilities is to make sure that you have capacity placards at the end of the aisle. What these do is they show the bay configuration, the capacity for the levels, as well as they look for capacity stickers, tags, magnets on the actual beams, letting the operators know, what size pallet and what weight they're allowed to put in that bay. So altered configurations, this happens quite a bit. As time changes, products change, pallets sizes change, and a lot of companies like to reconfigure their racking systems. This is totally okay to do, but the one thing that I always recommend is that you have it engineered, because when you buy the rack, you buy it based on the configuration that you're going to use it in. And when you change the configuration, the capacities that you were given can change as well. One of the biggest determining factors is the spacing of the beams. So for instance, you have a bay that has 4 beam levels. It was designed with a 20,000-pound upright. Well, you decide you want to pull 1 beam level out. You're only going to go to 3 beam levels, but instead of having an inch spacing, you go to a 90-inch spacing between those beams. So, although you only have the 3 beam levels, you're putting less weight on there. That upright is actually now only going to be rated for around 10,000 pounds, which is, a good reason to make sure that you always have it engineered by a qualified engineer who will stamp a drawing and just assure you that your system is going to do what you want it to do. So purchasing under capacity rack for less money. This is actually quite common. When I'm designing a system, I always ask a customer, what's the heaviest pallet that you're going to be putting in the system? And if it's, a side-by-side pallet, I always double it. So if it's a 5,000-pound pallet, I design the level to hold 10,000 pounds. And I usually get, well, the chances of us putting 2 pallets like that together, we don't ever plan on having that happen. And I always say, you plan for the worst to happen, so when it does, you're at least prepared. You plan to fail, or you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Like product changes, people change as well. In 10 years from now, somebody might not know that the system wasn't designed to handle that. So it's always good to design it based on the worst case scenario to make sure that you're covered. So just to recap, forklifts, protective guards, definitely training, making sure that the forklift operator is trained on how the rack should be serviced, how it should be loaded, unloaded, how it works. Overloading is definitely important to make sure you have the capacity plaques as well as the training so the operators know how to load it and unload it. Altered configurations, definitely have it engineered and designed. It takes a lot of liability off of your company to have an engineer actually stamp the drawing saying this configuration will work for what you want it to do. And also purchasing lower capacity rack for less money, definitely don't do it. Don't put a price tag on safety. One thing I want to talk about is some available services out there. A lot of people don't realize that there are actually user manuals for your racking systems. Almost every manufacturer out there has these available on their websites. If you look at the image with the check mark, that comes directly from the Interlake user manual. So it says, it says perform a regularly scheduled maintenance program. At a minimum, this program should include the following. I'm a big believer in following what the manufacturer recommends and setting up, planned maintenance or scheduled maintenance on your racking system to walk through, look for damage, call it out, get it fixed, as fast as possible. That's one thing that it does specify in OSHA is if you do have noticeable damage, you should fix it right away. So it is a good idea to download these user manuals, take a look at what they say and follow manufacturer's recommendations. So we move on to forklifts and material handling equipment. So the top causes of forklift accidents are when a forklift collides with an employee, an unstable load falling from heights onto a person, driver or operator trapped between the forklift and another object, or the forklift drives off the loading dock. So when we talk about worker forklift collisions, there's many different products or opportunities to improve safety within your facility. One thing that's available are motion sensors. They let the operators know that a pedestrian is coming. At the same time, they can let a pedestrian know that a forklift is coming. These can be wired into the building. They can be battery operated. They can be attached with magnets or, screwed in. Doing simple things like putting up mirrors on blind intersections is another good option. Floor striping, having designated pedestrian walkways, and having designated forklift traffic aisles always can help protect the people within your facility. There's other products out there such as the lights. You're going to have the blue lights shining off the truck. If the light's coming, the forklifts following shortly behind it. Another thing I point out, I did see down at Modex this year there was they had a light system that attached to the overhead guard of the forklift and shined a red perimeter around the forklift, letting the pedestrians know not to enter that perimeter until the forklift shut off and the red light goes off. I thought that was kind of a nice new invention that was out there. Other simple things you can do are put up barriers, like a highway guardrail system, or they have a plastic one or even bollards to protect areas where pedestrians will be walking, or even building columns and such, so it'll actually protect the forklift operator as well. So we talk about falling loads. This happens when either on a back-to-back set of rack, the operator is putting the pallet away and they extend it too far into the bay and it hits the pallet in the row of racking that's next to it and pushes it off. Similar to that picture up at the top. Another issue could be on a single row of racking where you're putting the pallet away and it's not set across both beams and it either falls off the back or falls in between and tips forward. Now, some of the products that are out there to protect from that are, rack backing. There's like a metal wire mesh fence that can help protect from products falling through. Those are used quite a bit on single rows of racking, and that's actually required if you, not the wire racking, but actually having protection behind a single row is required if you're going to have a process or pedestrians walking behind it to protect them from not only the product but pallets falling off. Simple things such as pallet supports, the picture in the bottom left corner, those protect pallets from falling in between, so misplaced pallets on the beams, they don't fall through. They also have wire decking, which will protect from pallets falling through, but as well as cases or boxes of product. Also setting up, you can always set up procedures, closing off an aisle if you're in a retail situation, or if you're doing something in the rack, you can close off the aisle and the adjoining aisle to make sure that no one's in there can get hit by falling pallets or product. So driver trapped between the forklift and another object, this is definitely an area where the operator should be trained. Training a forklift operator, it's important to let them know, the limitations of the forklift, how they work. You have a, 10,000-pound forklift traveling 5 miles an hour. It's not going to stop on a dime. So it's important that the operator knows, what is the actual true stopping distance at that speed. It's also important to make sure they know not to bypass any of the safety features such as the dead man pedal or the dead man pedal on a stand-up forklift. So forklifts driving off the loading dock, it's that time of year that the weather is getting nice, warm. People want to have their dock doors open, let the the natural light in there, nice breeze. But that does create quite a dangerous situation. Every year about this time you hear about a forklift that falls off the dock, and it usually never ends well. One of the things you can do if you do have an opportunity to design your dock, one thing to look at is the levelers. There's certain levelers out there that have the actual built-in protection that will not let a forklift drive off the dock unless it's extended into a truck. Simple barriers, there's like a roadblock barrier, there's barriers like fencing, can keep bugs out, but at the same time has enough holding force that will stop a forklift at low rates of speed. So it's definitely an area you want to look at, not keeping the doors open unless you have protective equipment in place. And that's one area that your material handling professional should be able to help you out or recommend something that will fit your application. Definitely want to look at forklift. This is an area that OSHA looks at. You should make sure that your forklift operators are trained every 3 years and are up to date on their certifications. This is another area where you can have software on your truck that monitors and makes sure that your operator has their up-to-date train, or else the truck will not operate. At the same time, this same software can be available to have electronic operator checklists. Operator checklists need to be done at least once a day. You can do it electronic, or you can have the paper version. It's one of those things that you need to keep records of in case there is an accident, so that way OSHA can come in and make sure that you were checking your truck over, making sure that it was safe to operate. Another thing is maintenance. Making sure that you do the correct maintenance on your truck, whatever the manufacturer recommends. So that way the truck is always in a safe operating condition. And there as well, you want to keep records in case there is an incident to show that you did have the truck serviced, you were doing the required maintenance that the manufacturer recommends. Again, there's software out there as well that's able to track your maintenance costs, track what you've done on your truck, and keep all that digitally for you. So now we move on to ergonomics. Ergonomics have to do with musculoskeletal disorders, or called MSDs. They account for 34% of all the lost work days, and they have over 600,000 recorded events each year which require time away from work. They account for 1 out of every $3 spent on workers' compensation. It's just incredible. And have costs of 15 to 20 billion in compensation costs, and direct costs add up to as much as 50 billion annually. So musculoskeletal disorders affect the bones and muscles within your body. They're very common. Arms, hands, fingers, neck, back, wrists, legs, and shoulders. Injuries such as carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, they're very common, and they do affect all parts of your body. So the top causes of ergonomic injuries within a warehouse include exerting excessive force, doing repetitive tasks, working in an awkward posture or doing the same position, and also having localized pressure on the body. So exerting excessive force, that's the lifting, pushing, pulling. This is actually a good area that you can improve within your facility. There's a lot of products on the market to help prevent these type of injuries. Everything from crane systems, jib cranes, workstation cranes, bridge cranes. And then with those cranes, they come with different types of attachments, such as vacuum attachments, magnet attachments, to help you lift products and move them without having to manually do it. Being able to tug products, they have electric tuggers out there that are able to pull carts throughout your facility, or you can even have it automated with automatic guided vehicles to pull these carts through your facility and lessen the chance of having an ergonomic injury. Adding simple things like cart and flow to a system. So when you're walking around picking products, you don't have a picker reaching into a level trying to reach a box in the back. You have cart and flow in there. It flows everything to the front of the system, so you're not reaching in and trying to pull out. Other things to look at are, walkie pallet jacks. Rather than having a manual pallet jack and trying to pull a heavy load across a floor if there's an incline, being able to have a walkie pallet truck, a powered pallet truck, is always beneficial. You look at, hand trucks. Hand trucks are very common. You can get a hand truck that's a stair climbing unit. So instead of having a delivery person or someone in the warehouse pulling something up some stairs, you can have a stair climber that'll help assist get the hand truck up the stairs. At the same time, they have hand trucks that have platforms that elevate up and down. So if you're taking heavy product and putting it in shelving or putting it in the rack, you can always use this to help elevate it up to the height where you can push it off. So doing repetitive tasks, this is always a great area to do automation as well. At the end of the line, building pallets or breaking pallets down, using conveyor to move product throughout your facility rather than pushing it on carts. Unloading containers, this is another area, stacking boxes on pallets. There's also robotics out there that can help with picking to get away from that repetitive motion. So awkward posture or same position. You see this when building pallets and at the end of the line or in a manufacturing facility. This is quite common. Same with in the shipping area. You can have people that are banding pallets or taking the rolls of pallet wrapping, running circles around a pallet. I see it quite a bit. There's things out there, spring-assisted lift tables that can attach to your walkie riders, your walkie or rider pallet jacks. There's lift tables that can be used at the end of the line where you can put your pallet on. You can have them pit mounted. Things like automatic strapping machines are relatively inexpensive, but you eliminate that bending over and in your dock area. Same with pallet wrappers. Not only does it stop the guy from running around the pallet, but there is also an ROI to it because it saves you on the stretch wrap film. So there's a lot of times there's more benefits than just ergonomics to these solutions. So localized pressure under the body. This one's very common. You think about the people that have, are standing in one place for long periods of time, kind of like cashiers at a supermarket, or, you have somebody in a manufacturing cell that's standing there all day. All that pressure on your feet, it can do damage to the nerves. It can also cut off circulation, which can cause serious issues. Same with maintenance people or mechanics in your facility that are working on machines or processes that are, have to kneel down. It's always good to have a type of cushion there for them to be on. One thing that often gets overlooked are the people that are loading and unloading the trucks. You know, that the impact from going over the dock plate in and out of the truck all day long can really play havoc on your back, can compress discs and cause lower back issues. So looking at better chairs for ergonomics for the forklifts is always a good option. You know, you'll see this if you ever have been on a city bus, some of the chairs that they have in there, just because the drivers are hitting bumps so often. It's really quite a common issue. So conveyors. Conveyors are widely used. They're one of the most used automated systems that are out there. Funny fact for you, the first documented use of conveyor systems goes back to 1795, where it's described as, you know, a piece of leather that was run between two pulleys. So the types of conveyors out there, you know, there's motor-driven roller, there's line shaft conveyor, overhead conveyors. Each conveyor has, you know, its designated use. So the top causes of conveyor injuries within a facility can be attributed to cleaning or maintaining a conveyor while it's still in operation, you know, not doing a lockout, tagout. People reaching in to remove jam material from the conveyor system. Also, you know, loose clothing, hair, jewelry. Here it says, you know, the most common is a cleaning rig getting caught in the belt of a conveyor and pulling a person's hands or fingers into the conveyor. And also having improperly guarded gears, sprockets, chains, or drives. So for conveyor injury prevention, probably the number one thing is training, making sure that the employees know how they should interact with the conveyor systems that they're working with, making sure that they know what the dangers are. You know, each style of conveyor has its own safety hazards. So it's important to know exactly what pertains to the type of conveyor that you're using. It's also good to make sure that you have preventive maintenance set up on your conveyor. Have somebody come in, and of course it depends on how often you're actually using your system, just to make sure that it's in good working order and it lessens the chance that there's going to be an accident. It's also good to set a standard operating procedure. So if there is a jam, the employees know how they should address it, or maybe there's only certain people that are allowed to clear a jam. And it's also good to make sure that all the you guard all the nip points and shear points, make sure all the guards are in place. So the general requirements that OSHA looks for on your conveyor is to make sure that there's an audible signal that sounds right before the conveyor starts up. So that way nobody can be, you know, be in an unsafe position where it starts and somebody can get hurt. It's also important to make sure that all the stops are in place at the remote spots or where employees may be working. They also make sure that once an emergency stop is tripped, that the system cannot be turned back on again until that emergency stop is reset. It's also good to make sure that the conveyors are guarded, all the guarding is in place. Just like with racking, you need to have wire decks in the tunnels where pedestrians walk through. It's the same thing with conveyors. If there's overhead conveyors and there's a possibility that the product or the pallet may fall through, or pallet or the product may fall off of the conveyor, it's important to make sure that there's netting or guarding up there to protect the people from the falling product. So conveyors need to be locked out and tagged out, rendered inoperable when they're being repaired or performing maintenance on them. This is very important.
Thank you, Nathan, for presenting this material. I would also like to thank everyone who joined us today. We hope you found this information to be relevant and valuable to your organization. If you have any questions about safety, please email us at info@associated-solutions.com or visit our website at www.associated-solutions.com. Thank you again for attending and have a great day.